One final clash for Austin FC against the Eastern Conference as the New York Red Bulls come to town, joined by the longtime voice, Matt Harmon, dating back to 2015 of the New York Red Bulls. Matt, how's it going?
Really good, Lincoln. Appreciate you having me on. Always good to talk soccer, talk Major League Soccer. And for us on the Red Bull side of things, a first ever trip into Austin for me personally, and can't wait to see the environment that you guys have created at Q2 Stadium and what goes on. Really looking forward to making the trip this weekend.
Yeah, these two clubs are the two most successful clubs on the road in Major League Soccer this year. Of course, you all had that brilliant start, your first 5 matches, and now unbeaten in your past couple away from home. The bad news for Austin is they're not on the road. They're back at home, but I think they are welcome to bear that burden when it's about 103 degrees outside and they've got another capacity crowd to welcome you all. But really thrilled to have you and your color analyst all these years now, Steve Jolly, coming back to Texas and have you all in Austin. Let me dive a little bit first into your start with the Red Bulls as you and Steve helped get the English radio back up on the air there for New York. You juggle that along with some freelancing and some teaching at Monmouth. But where were you in your broadcast career and with your soccer relationship when you took the job with New York?
Would say back in 2015 was doing a lot of college stuff across all sports, whether it was soccer, football, basketball, still of which I'm involved with to this day. A lot of high school stuff. I mean, from that freelance perspective, you just try and keep yourself busy as much as you can. It doesn't really matter what it is or what level. You're just trying to still sharpen your skills and can remember vividly my first conversation with Jason Baum, who was the director of communications at that time for Red Bull, saying, "Hey, got your name passed along to me. We're thinking about doing the English radio starting in 2015. Are you interested?" And, you jump at it, right? Because, and Lincoln, now you're one of 25, 30 guys who can say that they call professional soccer at the highest level in MLS in this country. So you run for those opportunities and have been fortunate enough to be involved with it now in our 8th season, and have been fortunate for a guy who, by the way, loves the state of Texas, has roots there as well. And my partner, Steve Jolly, he's looking forward to getting back into the Lone Star State this weekend as well.
Yeah, sandwiched between a couple of stints with the Red Bulls back when they were the Metro Stars, and then after the rebrand, he was with FC Dallas. So I'm sure that will earn him so many points with the fans here at Austin FC if they spot him walking around the venue. Before we dive into this matchup between Austin and New York, you also have a, quote, day job at Monmouth as you get to help mold the next generation of broadcasters, not just sports announcers, but obviously that's the most relevant here. What's that experience been like, and have you learned from that process?
100%, because I think one of the things that's really nice about it is in my time and my role at Monmouth, I do a lot of still hands-on work with the students day in and day out. So, if you're just saying you're a broadcaster, you can probably fill your time with a million other things. Filling my time right now is pulling different examples up to talk about and analyze in class, listening to students' reels and tapes and going through their demos and how to kind of process preparing for games. So you're kind of entrenched in it. And then, not only do I encourage them to kind of develop their own style, you can also kind of tweak your style as you go through it. And you can pull different examples in of how people do it across the industry. Fortunately enough, being in it for as long as I have in one way, you make connections with people so you can pull people's ideas in the class, and it becomes a really comprehensive experience, I'd like to think.
Most of your students, when they emerge with their degree and with whatever experience they were able to get on campus, it's a little bit different applying to jobs and networking than it was, I imagine, for the two of us coming out of college. But I think there's really no excuse not to have a great demo by the time you get out of college, whether it actually aired on something. It's never been easier to produce HD video, never been easier to produce a decent reel, whether it be radio or TV. Technology has come a long way. Have you seen your students benefit from that?
Oh, gosh, 100%. I mean, I'll still tell the story every once in a while, being, I hate to say on the older side, but old enough to remember, like when you sent a demo tape out, it was as a college student going into the local audio place and deciding, how much money do I want to spend on the cassette tapes that are then going to get sent out. Now, obviously, technology has come a long way. And I will say, in this generation, the students are so ingrained with it. You want to talk about learning sometimes from the students that you teach. That's something that has benefited me greatly because they're so up to date on the latest trends, whether it's social media, whether it's technology. But yeah, it's a real different world. I can remember thinking like, I can get that 12 pack for $10. I can get that 12 pack for $20. I could save a couple bucks as a college student. That money could be used elsewhere.
Yeah, just to clarify, the 12 pack is of cassette tapes.
That is correct. You could save money though, and you might be able to get something else that has the reference to a 12 pack as a college student.
Again, we're with Matt Harmon, voice of the Red Bulls since 2015. He and Steve Jolly will be at Q2 Stadium. They become the first out-of-state radio broadcast team to venture their way to Q2 here in the second year of Austin FC's existence in MLS. Let's look back at last year for Red Bulls just real quickly. I know each year kind of has a special place in your heart with the club, but what stands out about last year to you?
Yeah, listen, it was a grind for us without question. Difficult in a lot of ways from a broadcast perspective because we weren't back traveling like we are now, and we've been fortunate enough to do for most of our time doing Red Bull radio for the last 8 years. But I think if you looked at the team perspective, it was in July, kind of left out of the playoff chase. And then they had a fantastic run where every point mattered. A September stretch that actually they played NYCFC, which ironically enough, you mentioned we had just played last weekend, had to play them twice in the span of a week, which is something that was kind of unheard of because of a rain out earlier in the season. And then having the opportunity to get back on the road at the end of last year, doing an important game in DC, going to Nashville on decision day, in which Red Bull kind of needed something to go their way, and they did to get in the playoffs. And then heartbreak at the end of the year, losing on an absolute rocket in extra time to Philadelphia. But being able to also kind of put in perspective, okay, team back in the playoffs, a lot of good pieces. And I think you've seen a lot of those pieces kind of come to fruition this year where the team's top three right now in the Eastern Conference.
What were the priorities you gather in the offseason that ultimately were met and have led to the success this year? Obviously, MLS veteran like Lewis Morgan, you have a couple of brothers who are reunited on the club as well. But what do you think the team was targeting, and how have you seen it play out so far?
Well, I think, Lincoln, you could point to a couple of acquisitions. Excuse me. Lewis Morgan being one, Laquinhas being the other. Two guys that have clearly added something into the attack for New York, of which they didn't have last year. And I was actually talking with some of the guys on Sirius XM over the course of the weekend going into the Derby game. And they had said, like, okay, who's a potential MVP on this team? And I think the one name that kind of gets left off that most people probably wouldn't pay attention to is the guy that Red Bull traded for before the start of last year, who struggled a little bit. And that's Frankie Amaya. He's been one of the best guys on this team without question. I think last year when he came in, he probably thought of himself as an 8, maybe a 10, where this year he's become one of the best 6s in the league. And he is a key guy for this team. So if you look at two offseason acquisitions, Morgan and Laquinhas, and a guy from last year that has refound his form, Frankie Amaya, without question.
I mentioned at the top of this chat that you all, what a fantastic start away from home in those first 5 road matches that you and Steve got to see firsthand as you all continue to travel around the league. What was it about this team early on that seemed to click, especially in those road trips?
Interesting. And 100% honest answer, don't know, because I think we all kind of waited at some point for the team to get back to what would be normal MLS form. Maybe you grab a point here, a couple of losses, maybe you win a game somewhere along the road. But those first 5 games, obviously the team was so sharp on the road. And it's a good thing they were, because in hindsight, looking at it, the team really struggled at home at the beginning part of the year. Then they went through a little bit of a phase Miami, Charlotte, LAFC. They lost 3 games in a row on the road. A win in Kansas City, a point a couple of weeks ago in Cincinnati. So they seem to have refigured it out on the road. And this is kind of a key stretch for this team, without question, between the game last week, which was disappointing to lose to NYCFC, game in Austin, and then they've got a massive game coming up on Wednesday in Orlando in the semifinals of the Open Cup.
Yeah, there are 4 teams. You mentioned semifinals still playing for that U.S. Open Cup. When you factor in the Sacramento Republic or one of them, they'll face Sporting KC. The only 3 teams from Major League Soccer. How have you seen Struber juggle the responsibilities of both the Major League Soccer season as well as trying to grab some silverware here in the midst of the summer?
Well, the last couple of games, NYCFC was the quarterfinal matchup for New York. Charlotte was the round of 16 game. Without question, it was a Red Bull team that threw out, in essence, a first choice lineup and really went for it, because at the end of the day, you want to be able to win trophies. You want to be able to have something to show at the end of the season. And Steve, my broadcast partner, Steve, talks about it in this regard. It's in some ways the easiest way to qualify for Champions League. You need to win 6 games, 5 if you're one of those teams that come in at a later round, but 6 in the case of Red Bull. You win those 6 games, you're in Champions League. You can say that you won a trophy as opposed to the grind, which is 34 games over the course, and the crapshoot, which is the playoffs, because there's been years since 2015 that Red Bull has been the best team in the regular season and have not had the playoff luck. So, right now, I think it will be interesting to me to go back to your original question. What kind of lineup is thrown out there Sunday night against Austin? I think if this game was on Saturday, I think it would make a big difference. But because now it's Sunday night and then you've got to flip and go Wednesday against Orlando, I'm curious to know at this point, as you and I talk right now, still midweek, what the lineup will look like on Sunday night.
It's the price you pay for MLS wanting you to be one of the marquee games. Just 2 matches on Sunday as 2 teams who are near the top of both the East and the West collide. From the outside looking in, impressions of recent expansion clubs and where Austin kind of struck you when you saw them on the schedule coming into this year?
Excited to get out there for a couple of reasons. I mean, even going back to last year, clearly the atmosphere is something that not many teams can rival in Major League Soccer, watching it on television. Knowing, the importance of having that third team, in essence, in Texas and how that's going to develop. And I think, I'd like to make the comparison, at least from the outside looking in, that Austin is almost a Portland type area where there's not a ton of other professional sports and you can really gravitate towards a Major League Soccer team. Having the opportunity to been to Portland a couple of times, always been super impressed with their atmosphere, and I'm sure it's going to be the same on Sunday in Austin. But yeah, super excited about it. Just this year as well, take COVID out, the opportunity to go to Charlotte this year to see what they're doing, the opportunity to go to Inter Miami this year to see what they're doing, even though they had been in the league a couple of years, we hadn't been able to travel because of COVID. So it's pretty awesome, quite honestly, Lincoln, to see how the league continues to develop through new franchises, or in some cases, existing franchises that now have new stadiums. We were in Cincinnati 2 weeks ago, and for the first time at TQL Stadium, just a fantastic venue. They did it right. It's a great stadium. And I will say this, a lot of these new places rival what we feel like is still, the best place in Major League Soccer in Red Bull Arena.
Yeah, Red Bull Arena had fantastic buzzing atmosphere for that national audience when New York City came to town. Tati Castellanos was the difference maker in that match. But it was a match that you all really controlled, I felt like, at least the majority of the first half. What was your impression of that rivalry contest, and how have you seen the club bounce back from tight matches like that one?
Knew it was going to be a tough game. I mean, clearly you would have loved to have gotten at least a point out of it. But because of the way the Open Cup game went a couple of weeks ago when Red Bull won that game 3-0, it was a Red Bull team that in essence, and an Open Cup game that got marred a little bit, some red cards given out during the game, 2 red cards were given out after the game. So you kind of thought, like, NYCFC was clearly going to come and try and spoil the party. We've learned now since Tati Castellanos kind of on his way out of Major League Soccer. So it turned out to just not be our day, unfortunately. But it was the first half that 100% would agree. We had plenty of opportunities, plenty of chances. You get a goal somewhere in those first 45 minutes, and even the first 20 we talked about on our radio broadcast. It makes such a difference for Red Bull when they can score early and then make teams adjust rather than the other way around.
Yeah, I really feel like that right there is probably one of the leading stories going into Sunday, as Austin has been conceding some goals early. Now, they've been able to impressively bounce back, lead the league with 16 points this year when they have been in a trailing position at some point in the match. But Red Bulls are a club that if you all can find that early goal, you were so aggressive in the first half this past week. You all have a press that can wear down a club. We'll just see how that Texas heat factors in. Obviously, nobody comes away a winner against 103-degree temperatures, but this is one certainly I know that's been circled on the calendar for time to come. Professor, we appreciate you letting all the Austin FC fans audit your course here and the past maybe 8 seasons of Red Bull's history. And I know you all are still chasing that first MLS Cup, have a few open cups that you'd like to add maybe one more to before the end of this season. Remind folks tuning in where they can find your call with Steve.
NewYorkRedBulls.com, the New York Red Bull app. Every once in a while, like I'm sure it's happened for you, you get picked up by SiriusXM, which we were on Sunday. I'm not sure if they're going to grab your call maybe this weekend because they usually take the home team, but they've been such an awesome partner as well. But the Red Bulls website or the Red Bull app is usually the 2 best places to kind of find us.
It's a 7:00 start. That means 7 Central locally, 8 Eastern for the folks tuning in to cheer on New York. As you mentioned, it will be on SiriusXM FC. They do tend to take the home call, but we won't pretend it's merit-based, but that is just by default what they lean on. Our call will also be on Alt 97.5 FM throughout the Austin area and, of course, free on the iHeart Radio app. Our friends, Adrian Healy, Michael Lahoud, as always, will have their pregame show on KBVO, along with our Spanish voices, Roger Valdivieso and Sonny Guadarrama. That will start a half hour prior to the match, so that is 6:30 Central Time. Again, also streaming on Austin FC's website and app. Matt Harmon, appreciate your time. Full disclosure, for the first time all season long, I failed to hit the record button. So Matt, who gave some beautiful responses early on, really broke down the meaning of life quite well and in a way I could never relay accurately. And then all of a sudden we had to do it all over again. Matt, appreciate your patience.
Those answers are now out somewhere. Somebody was probably recording us and we didn't know it. They're out there for posterity's sake, but I loved being on with you. I appreciate the time. And again, looking forward to seeing the great city of Austin, the stadium, and catching up with you over the course of the weekend.
Yeah, look forward to having you and Steve as next door neighbors on Sunday. Take care.